Hi, my name is Chris, and I'm an experienced American English teacher. I specialize in business English, but if you need help in other areas, we can still talk. I have around 3.5 years of classroom teaching experience, and I've been teaching online for about 6 months now, and I love it. I think online teaching gives the teacher and the students so many different tools to use to learn English, tools that aren't always available in a classroom. My background also includes 10 years as a global human resources professional. Most recently, I worked as a global human resources director for a high-tech company in the United States. So that's one reason I like to talk about business English, and I like to teach business English, is because I've had a lot of experience as a business person, and I like to use that experience in my classes. A lot of my students want to use English to communicate at work. Maybe they have a foreign boss, or they have foreign suppliers, foreign customers. Or maybe they just want a chance at applying to a new job where they need to speak English. I can be really helpful in all of those different situations based on my background, beyond my English teaching background. So I really enjoy talking to my students about how to deal more effectively with their boss, how to get ready for interviews, how to make the most out of their performance review. Things like that are going to help them not only learn English, but also be successful at work. You might wonder what a lesson with me would be like, so let me give you an example of a lesson I just did. So I have a student in China who is getting ready to find a new job, and he got invited to an interview, and he was pretty sure they were going to test his English and do part of the interview in English, so he wanted to be ready. So what we did was we found some great content on the BBC Learning English website, specifically about getting ready for interviews. And that included a podcast with text. So before our lesson together, I made some flashcards with the definitions of new words and new expressions so that he could study that on his own time, on his own schedule, understand the podcast better, so that when we actually met for our lesson, we were able to use our time just practicing and reinforcing all of those new words and expressions that he learned. So during the lesson, we had a discussion guided by questions that I had prepared to get him to use all of the new words and expressions. I corrected most of his pronunciation issues. I answered any questions he had, but mostly I got him to talk and use the words over and over again. You know, I like to say, grammar is the engine of a language, and vocabulary is the fuel for a language. So you really need to spend a lot of time and energy learning vocabulary. Grammar is a lot easier, actually, I think. But remembering all these words is so hard. So I make sure we use the words over and over again so that you remember. And I do it over a few weeks because I keep track of the words we've been learning. And even in the first week, if we just meet once a week, you're going to have to use those words on 4 different occasions, okay? The first time is in the pre-work that I'm going to give you before each lesson. Then you're going to have to use the words again and the expressions when we meet and do our actual lesson. After that, I'm going to give you homework, and you'll have to use it again. Finally, at the beginning of our next lesson, we're going to review your homework, and that's the last time we'll review those specific words until they come up again in another discussion in the future. But that's really important for remembering all of these new language parts. And it's not just something I made up. This is based on brain science. So the science says the more you try to remember something, the more you will remember something. So that's the key. Not just studying, seeing it isn't going to help. You actually have to think about, is this the right word to use? What's the right word to use in this context? What's the right grammar I need to use for this situation? And actually use it. So I say this not only because I've studied learning my whole career, and I've studied how to learn languages, but I've also learned several languages. And I know how to focus my time on what will help me learn the fastest. So just a little bit about me really quick. As a child, I lived in France for 4 years, and I had to learn French. I was in a very intensive French program for my first year, and that's what my teacher did for us, is he exposed us to the words over and over several times before moving on to new content, new language. And he would always make sure to include what we did before somehow in the future. And I remembered that way. But I also learned German. I learned Spanish, and I lived in Venezuela for a year teaching English and learning Spanish. I learned Chinese. I lived in Taiwan, and I live in Taiwan today. And then I learned Portuguese, more on my own, through CDs and through practicing with coworkers during business trips to Brazil. So if you take a lesson with me, I'll make you spend your time on what's actually going to work to help you learn and remember. And I promise it'll be interesting because I've got a lot of interesting background that hopefully relates to something in your life, whether it's in your professional life or outside. I will make you work though, so I like students who are ready to go to work and put some effort into learning, because the truth is, even though there are people out there that say there are shortcuts to learning, there really are not. And the only shortcut to learning is hard work, if that's even a shortcut. So I look forward to meeting you, and I look forward to helping you learn English. Okay, bye.